Welcome to NTD China News. I'm Karen Chan. Making headlines this Wednesday, January 16th. China's bad air is sending kids to hospitals. Why the Kachin minority says China should intervene in their conflict with Burma. And the controversial one-child policy is here to stay. China's hospitals are seeing an increase in patients with respiratory tract illnesses and experiencing a bed shortage for incoming patients. Doctors say the number of patients are increasing every day since the spell of bad air filled eastern China.
Heavy haze covering most of east and central China and air pollution in many provinces have led to a sharp increase in patients with respiratory diseases. Haze is particulate matter of density PM 2.5, which means particles that are 2.5 micrometers in diameter. Such small particles can easily enter the lungs and bloodstream, causing respiratory disease. In Beijing's Children's Hospital, the respiratory ward was full of patients and children on Wednesday.
It has had a huge effect, especially on his respiratory tract. The weather was dry already, and then it has been so bad, so my child has had allergic reactions and has an infection in his respiratory tract. It's very serious. I think this air is really too terrible.
Some patients are even thinking of taking their kids away to escape the toxic air.
There are a lot of cars and a lot of people, and the air pollution is extreme. I want to take him back to his ancestral home. I don't want him staying in Beijing. They say the air is better in his ancestral home. There aren't as many cars.
In Yongkang City in Zhejiang Province, several hospitals are short of beds and seats due to increasing number of patients. Similar situation occurred in Hefei of eastern China's Anhui Province. The number of kids with respiratory diseases is 3 to 4 times higher than Euro number, according to local hospitals.
The mostly Christian Kachin ethnic minority in Burma has been calling on China for help. They want the Chinese regime to help broker a solution with the Burmese government over an armed conflict. Last year, Chinese authorities sent Kachins who had fled to China back to Burma, claiming they weren't refugees.
The Kachin ethnic minority in Burma has been battling with the Burmese army since June of 2011. Fight for control over hydro projects in the Kachin state reignited armed conflict that ceased in 1994. On Monday, a Burmese army airstrike in the town of Liza reportedly killed 3 Kachin civilians and injured several others. Since the renewed conflict between the Burmese army and the Kachin Independence Army, Kachin supporters in 3 major U.S. cities have been holding rallies in front of Chinese embassies. They're calling on China to intervene. The hydro projects are backed by Chinese companies, and the conflict is breaking out near the Burmese and Chinese border. In August last year, Chinese authorities sent back thousands of Kachin refugees who had crossed the border into China. Chinese authorities said they weren't refugees.
Our demands were very simple. We wanted the government of China to be involved in this political creation of political dialogue between the government of Burma and the Kachin Independence Organization. After all, China has become the stakeholder of Burma. When we say stakeholder, it could be an economic stakeholder.
During a press conference on Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei urged the 2 sides to resolve the dispute through negotiations. He added that the situation on the border is stable and that China will continue to protect its citizens from crossfire. Last week, when Kachin people on both sides of the border protested, Chinese security kept Burmese Kachin from crossing over. After 17 years of ceasefire between the Kachin ethnic minority and the Burmese authorities, tensions flared over development projects by Chinese-owned companies. Dam projects on the Taipei and Irrawaddy rivers were the cause of much of the tension. They were built in Kachin territory primarily to provide energy to China. The Burmese military tried to control the lucrative projects, which displaced thousands of Kachins.
Well, it could even be one of the main reasons for this renewed ethnic conflict was based upon the Chinese mega project, infrastructure projects in Burma, especially in Kachin state.
The Kachin people have long accused the Burmese authorities of human rights violations. Since 2011, Kachin rights groups say 100,000 Kachins have been internally displaced by the conflict.
There have been high hopes that the new batch of Chinese leaders would make reforms to China's one-child policy. Official Chinese think tanks have called it outdated and damaging to the country, but an official announcement today made it clear that the one-child policy isn't going anywhere.
What would it be like to never be able to have children? Not because of any health issue, but because your own government won't let you.
I'm also a victim of the one-child policy. My husband has 2 kids when we got married, so I wasn't allowed to have any kids. For the rest of my life, I can never have a child of my own.
And even though there have been calls for easing China's one-child policy, the most ambitious reforms would only create a 2-child policy. That wouldn't help Ms. Zhang. But hopes that current Chinese leaders would issue at least some degree of reform were crushed earlier today. Wang Xia, minister in charge of the National Population and Family Planning Commission, announced that the one-child policy is here to stay. According to this statement, Wang reiterated that the policy should be a long-term one and its primary goal is to keep a low birth rate. Modern China has been shaped by the one-child policy. According to the official Chinese think tank, the China Development Research Foundation, the policy has been responsible for an aging population, gender imbalances, a growing shortage of migrant workers, and ultra-low fertility rates. Human rights and women's rights groups have decried it for a string of forced abortions and sterilizations throughout the country.
The practice of baby trafficking is also attributed to the birth control policy. Because there are fewer children, traffickers kidnap and sell kids. The policy has a huge impact on society. It's a damaging system.
The Chinese regime started the one-child policy in 1980. In October 2011, the state-run People's Daily stated the one-child policy has prevented 400 million births.
And coming up after the break, China sees less foreign direct investment in 2012. More than 1 million Android cell phones are infected with malware, and Kung Fu masters battle it out in a new film released this month. And welcome back. China is seeing a steady monthly drop in the amount of foreign direct investment into the country, the Ministry of Commerce announced today. In December, incoming foreign direct investment, or FDI, fell by 4.5% year-on-year. For the whole of 2012, that decline was 3.7% from a year ago. In dollar terms, more than $111 billion flowed into China in 2012. That's down from a $160 billion high in 2011. It's the first time the yearly figure has fallen since 2009, when the world saw its economic slowdown. The inflow FDI drop is thanks to less money coming in from Europe and Asia. As property and labor costs rise in China, investors are looking elsewhere. However, investors from the United States have been pumping more money into China for the past 12 months. FDI from the US increased 4.5% since last year to $3.1 billion. The fall in China's inward FDI is contrasted with the amount of money leaving China. Non-financial investment overseas increased by 28.6%, or more than $77 billion. Hong Kong's embattled chief executive has outlined plans to deal with the housing shortage in the city, amongst several other announcements. Whether the proposals will save him from plunging popularity will remain to be seen.
In a speech on Wednesday, Hong Kong's controversial leader Leung Chun-ying addressed the city's poor living conditions. Residents of the former British colony live in cramped apartments, with some even living in mesh houses called bird cages. Despite the tight spaces, property prices have doubled over the past 4 years, making it hard to find a decent place to live. Outside the government headquarters, around 200 people protested. They're demanding reforms to a range of social issues, like affordable housing.
But actually, we have some informal survey. Actually, more than 50,000 people live in such poor condition. So, increase the land supply is very important and very urgent matters for Hong Kong right now.
Although Leung was not voted in by the people, his most supportive constituents are lower and middle-class citizens. In an effort to boost his popularity, Leung promised to increase land supply, fight pollution, and boost welfare. Leung said 75,000 subsidized public housing units will be built over the next 5 years, 100,000 more in the next 5 years. Even underground housing is being considered. But these plans stretch beyond Leung's tenure. His term will end in 4.5 years. It will be up to future officials to see these projects through, assuming they get support to start in the first place. Leung Chun-ying's announcement came amidst attempts to save his flailing reputation. He has been accused of acting under the thumb of Chinese leaders. A failure to disclose illegal additions to his home last year has also sent his popularity plunging. Now many speculate that he is trying to fix his reputation and build up some favor with Hong Kong citizens.
More than 1 million smartphones in China have been infected with Trojan horse malware, according to security researchers. The infection of so many devices is referred to as a botnet, which can be controlled by a third party. The purpose? To remotely access the smartphones for fraudulent transactions. State-run Xinhua news agency reports the Trojan was first discovered back in 2011. Those affected are using Google's Android platforms. Users get infected by downloading smartphone apps from non-Google-owned stores that are laced with the malware. China now has more than 420 million cell phone users, according to the China Internet Network Information Center. And the amount of cell phone accessing the internet grew over 18% last year alone. Users are now being told to monitor their bills for unusual data and call use. It takes years, if not a lifetime, for someone to train to become a master in Chinese martial arts, better known as Kung Fu. Then what about being named a Kung Fu Grandmaster? Earlier this month, a movie more than a decade in the making premiered in Taipei, and it features a star-studded cast on their path to getting the venerable title.
功夫兩個字.
The original script was written in 2001. After a long journey knocking on the door of over 100 kung fu masters across China, Wong Kar-wai's martial arts epic, The Grandmaster, debuted in Taiwan on January 10th. The movie, set in the 1930s, tells the story of kung fu masters challenging each other for the title of Grandmaster after the previous occupant of the title retires.
So when people ask me what kind of movie it is, I can only say it's a story about passing the old torch on. It's a story about many people in the martial arts circle who want to surpass their own skill, experience, and essence. That's the point of the story.
One of these masters is the real-life character Yip Man, known for being one of southern China's most accomplished martial artists and the teacher of Bruce Lee. In the movie, after Yip Man, played by Tony Leung, defeats a challenger from the north of China, his daughter, played by Zhang Ziyi, seeks revenge, only to fall in love with the already married Yip Man. Director Wong Kar-wai required his lead actors to learn Kung Fu for 3 years before they started shooting.
During the long training period, I felt a real spirit and tried to understand and really experience it. This spirit came from me little by little. This is because Kung Fu is not only physical but also mental. These things cannot simply be learned. It's just like how reading a few books won't make you accomplished. By practicing over a long period, this spirit came from within me.
Co-star Chang Chen even won a national Kung Fu tournament as a result of training for the movie.
I had to do every order the director gave me. I think that's what my character is like. When he told me to learn Baji Qian Kung Fu, I had to learn it well. If I didn't try hard, I just wouldn't learn. In some ways, this is the way it works. I believe Director Wong knows me well. That's why he asked me to learn. But I'm surprised that it's become such a part of my life now.
The Grandmaster's fight scenes are choreographed by Yun Wu-ping, who conducted the Kung Fu action in The Matrix and a host of other Chinese Kung Fu movies. Critics are already heralding Zhang Ziyi's performance in the movie as one of the best of her career. The Grandmaster will open the Berlin International Film Festival on February 7th.
And that's all for this broadcast of NTD China News. For more on China-related topics, visit our website at ntd.tv or subscribe to our YouTube channel NTD on China, where you'll find all of NTD's China content. Coming up next is a segment of the 9 commentaries of the Communist Party. Stay tuned.